Hey guys, so you are so welcome to this super special episode of my brand new show, The Wealth Rebels. I am your resident wealth rebel, Emma Wright, and this episode is so freaking special for more than one reason. It is the very first of the relaunch of my existing podcast, Wealth Unchained. So that in itself makes it super special. But the synchronicities, and Joe, I didn't want to spoil this for you, but the synchronicities of what makes this so special are literally off the scale. I literally could not have dreamed up a better first guest to bring into the show, in terms of an impact founder that I'm about to introduce you guys to. I'm so freaking inspired by what you've done and what you've created. Now, I only decided in June that I wanted to relaunch, realign, and rebirth the show. And the word rebirth is really perfectly connected to what you're doing with your venture. As I was planning the new show, it's all centered around four pillars: wealth, investing for good, planet for good, planet before profit, and shining that spotlight on impact, ventures and founders of those ventures, with a focus of wealth not being about money. Wealth is your energy and your vibration. And in order to save the planet from the issues that we face today, we need more founders to put themselves out there and create the solutions that the world's biggest problems need solving, and that often big corporates can't get to. And that's one of the things we were talking about before we like sorted out today's show. So I cannot wait to dive into this today with you, Joe. Now, for those of you that have been following me for a while, will know that everything that sits behind what I do is the love of the planet, the love of the oceans. I've got my marine conservation t-shirt on. I literally live in them. It's a bit sad, really. And I've got a lineup of founders for the show, but the universe had its own unique way of finding me the perfect guest to fully align with the love of oceans and the focus of our wealth sovereignty and energy through holistic remedies, so that we own our health and well-being. So literally only 2 Saturdays ago, I stumbled down the road to my local running club at Heartbreak Hotel Coffee Shop in North Devon, where I met Nick. Now, Nick wasn't even meant to be there. I haven't really told you this story, Joe. Nick wasn't meant to be there. We got chatting, as always, about things that I love: the planet, venture capital, entrepreneurship, my podcast, the oceans. And boom, Nick said, "You need to speak to Joe." And then, like a week later, here we are recording this episode as the very first for my show, because it's so freaking perfect. So welcome, Joe Welstead, to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emma. I'm very happy to be here. Good timing.
It is. I mean, this is the thing, right? You are the co-founder of Drink Oshun, that was only launched in April 2024, so just 4 months ago. I can't wait for you to tell me about what makes Oshun so special, which, I've been trying out. I've got it right here. It's in my water as we speak. I've been trying it out. So thank you very much, Nick, for introducing that to me. So, maybe I should blame ocean for all this crazy energy that's going through my body right now, because I feel it flowing. And when I feel it flowing, I do find it, quite hard to center my energy. Now, the synchronicities don't stop there, Joe. Okay. So yesterday I had a coaching call with my soul coach. I have a soul coach, and we were talking about my new podcast. And she's called Kat. I told Kat about ocean and about you coming on my show today. And how perfect is this, right? Kat said, "Oh my God, Em, my actual cat is called Oshun, spelled Oshun."
That's amazing.
Yeah. And she told me the word ocean is connected to sexuality, fertility, femininity, water, destiny, purity, beauty, wealth, and prosperity. And I'm like, what the fuck? Sorry, I had to swear. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, what is going on? So to rebirth the Wealth podcast with you makes my whole body just tingle with joy, because it's divine timing, meeting Nick and then meeting you and anyone that's listening to this, because I bang on so much about stepping into trust and not micromanaging everything, trusting that the universe. And this is just a really profound example that I just had to share as we dive into this conversation today with you. So quickly, before we get into this really amazing conversation, I just want to remind everyone that the whole purpose of the show is to shine a light on ventures, on amazing founders, to create that ripple effect. So do please like, subscribe, follow, leave a comment, because it means the world to people like Joe that come onto the show, that give up their time, and that is what it is all about. So, Joe, you're right now you're sat in the very beautiful south of France, which I'm very jealous about because it's very wet and rainy in North Devon. The perks of being an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So before we dive into Ocean, I want to dive into you. I want to dive into you behind kind of the brands, because behind every amazing brand is an amazing person, first and foremost. And your love of the ocean didn't just start, one day, it started from a really young age. Tell me a little bit about your story. You started out as a pro swimmer before becoming like a serial entrepreneur. Tell me a little bit about your story.
That's right. So I actually grew up here in the south of France, and I've come back to this region after 15 years in the UK. And so I grew up kind of surrounded by really fresh, healthy, vibrant food, going to the market at a really young age. So I always had like this really um, strong like appetite for healthy food, healthy living, understanding of making my own food from scratch, this kind of thing. So I always had like this interest in feeding myself properly. I also spent every summer for at least 1 month. I would go to a friend's house on the west coast of France, and they were basically like my um, summer family. They were like my second family over the summer. They always took care of me. So I'd spend like 1 or 2 months there, really like part of the ocean culture, and at the same time, really got into my swimming as a teenager and went pretty much full time pro swimmer when I was a little older. So I'm for Scotland in the Commonwealth Games of 2014. So water, being in the water, swimming, surfing. I also spent a year out in Australia training there for my swimming and surfing. Has always been a really big part of my life. Just water in general, but the ocean is the most special. And so this new venture was really special in many ways, but one thing that we wanted to convey is just the feeling of being grounded, being happy, being like feeling whole. The way we describe it is if we were to say, can you think of a moment in your life when you were perfectly at peace? So usually it'll be something like holiday, honeymoon, beachside, like full relaxations, bare feet in the sand, really well hydrated, maybe sipping on some coconut water fresh from the coconut. All this, like the whole picture of like perfectly relaxed. Maybe you had a massage that morning, like feeling 100% at peace. That if we could basically bottle up that feeling, that's what we want to have in ocean. So it's all about the feeling of feeling fully energized, fully grounded, fully whole, not stimulated by caffeine, but just nourished properly so that your body can function well and your mind can function well.
Oh my goodness. Literally, can I like this is why I'm going to carry this around in my bag the whole time, literally, because okay, you spent 15 years in the UK and then you've gone back to the south of France, right? To because it's quite cold. You were in Brighton, I think, as well, weren't you, for a period of time, right? And it's quite cold over here. And nourishing your body, being hydrated, it's the first thing that we need to be for our body to be in flow, right? And that's what makes it so important that we drink things like water. And we're not we when we're thinking of drinking water, we don't want to drink it because it feels so boring.
Hmm.
But that just what you just said literally has made me. I've been drinking more water over the last few days. Like, and I'm really aware. I moved to North Devon. I left London 10 years ago. I moved to North Devon, and now only 3 months ago I moved to Braunton to be close to the beach, to be able to
Nice.
put my feet in the sand every day.
Right.
And what you said, can you think of that moment? It's yoga for me.
Right.
Like when I'm doing yoga, I'm in downward dog, and I'm like in that yoga position. That for me is that wholeness because I'm fully connected. Or when I'm running on the beach, I'm learning to surf as well. Like I've been in North Devon for 10 years and I still can't surf. And I'm like,
You
what the
got to do
flip
it.
is going
You got to
on?
commit. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's because it's cold,
You
right?
know, you get
So
over that.
so your story of, the fact that you could go and spend summers on the West Coast, right, is just so beautiful and perfect. And it's really helped you to shape the person that you become, because then you got into swimming and you dive deep into that part of you. How long were you a swimmer for then? How long were you swimming and competing and going around the world? Tell me a little bit more about that time in your life.
Um, I started swimming and competing quite young, but then I guess I probably spent 5 or 6 years where I was at a fairly good level and, competing, um, competed in Australia, competed in France. I had a pro club in France and I was based for 5 years at Stirling University in Scotland. So I had kind of like a couple different bases and competed in the UK a lot and France a lot through the year. So yeah, it was really, really intense period of my life where I would train 20 to 25 hours a week. And of course, like nourishment, fueling yourself, hydrating yourself is a huge part of that. I actually almost forgot about this, and it's kind of bonkers to think about, but when I was training that much, I went through 7 liters of water every day. That was just like my requirement. Because I remember I had essentially it would be sort of 3 liters of water, which is what a lot of people sort of my size might do through a regular day. That would be my sort of baseline hydration. But then I'd have 2 training sessions where I'd go through 2 liters in each one of the training sessions. So it was a total of 7 liters every day. It was just a bit crazy. But that just shows, you have sort of assumptions of what your body needs, and then sometimes you can actually discover that there's another gear. And for a lot of people, hydration is a really big part of that because I think different areas and different cultures are different about this, but in the UK, we're very fond of tea, very fond of cordial, we're very fond of juice, right? All these things, and of course, coffee more and more now. And water kind of gets forgotten about. And it's not that you need to drink plain water, lots of plain water, but you do need to do something to make sure you're not just drinking sugar or stimulants. And I think for a lot of people, that's when you actually find that you've got another gear.
Ah, you're talking to a Yorkshire girl here. I grew up
Right.
with Yorkshire tea, right? So, and also I was fed juice. Literally my dad like fed me juice growing up, and these social conditionings, societal conditionings of how we live on stimulants is massively, massively embedded within us. And I gave up 12 months ago. I gave up booze pretty much. I was like, I don't drink, and I don't drink anymore at all. 100% don't drink alcohol, because I realized that this body is everything. And one of the things we talked about before we came on to do today was about the fact that, often we think of athletes as being the people that need to drink the 7 liters of water, that need to put these supplements into their bodies to look after themselves. And the rest of us walk around, instead of driving a Ferrari or driving, this amazing body, that could be an Iron Man or woman, superwoman, whatever you want to say. We go around in Skodas because we're being conditioned to be normal, be average,
Hmm.
and I 12 months ago, probably longer than 12 months ago for me, like, I was like, no, I am a yogi. I am going to be a surfer. I'm still kind of convincing my brain that I can be a surfer, because in my mind, I'm not a surfer. I ride horses, but not waves.
Hmm.
All of these things that we're conditioned to do, and we stimulate our bodies. And what you said about the 7 liters of water, I drink so much water now. And this actually putting ocean into my drink has made me even more conscious and thinking about it. Because I messaged you, I said, how often should I put this in my drink? And you just said, put it in all the time, a few pumps. And I'm like pumping it in and going in. And it really encourages you to habit stack. I love
Yeah.
habit stacking into my routine. I did drop it into my coffee this morning. So
Yeah, you can do that.
I went down to heartbreak because I
Yeah.
realized I woke up this morning and my milk had gone off. I was like, oh, I was like, okay, I'm going to go down to, and this is the beautiful thing of being an entrepreneur, when you can do what you want to do. And that's one of the things that I love about your story as well, your entrepreneurial journey, and the fact that you can travel yes, we're grounded. We can ground anywhere in the world because this is the avatar that we have. This is the ocean that's walking around. And I know
Yeah.
you want to talk about that, right? But the fact that when we become entrepreneurs and we do the things that we love and we travel around the world, we need a body that is in flow and in fluidity. So I just love the fact that, can you think, I ask everyone who's listening to this, can you think of that moment of peace where you are in that? And for me, it's not on a beach in the Maldives anymore. Actually, it's my everyday life. I get up every
Right.
single day and I walk down to Heartbreak, get my coffee. I don't always walk, I might go for a run and grab one on the way back. And then I do my creative business and drink my ocean now and speak to amazing guests on my podcast because this is what I love. And so it's looking at what you want to do in your life. So you obviously, from a really young age, spent time swimming and learned to love the ocean on such a deep level, which I really resonate with. And then you stopped swimming and you founded a business, Motion Nutrition, right? Tell me a little bit about that. Tell me a little bit about Motion Nutrition and
Sure.
that kind of stage of your life.
Yeah, Motion was my first business. We basically the whole idea behind that was this was a time when sports supplements, health supplements in general were really becoming more and more mainstream, going from like elite sport to and maybe elite sport and bodybuilding to everyday life. It was like the time when people would start to have like their morning smoothies in a shaker cup on the street. You could just see it becoming a really, really big thing. And these are not full-time athletes or anything like that, just people who exercise a little bit and want to be healthy. That was the moment. And so there was a clear like big increase in awareness and demand, but all the products were still the same from 5, 10 years before. So everything was like very, very performance led, very, very macho, very, very get big, get tough, alpha bro type thing. So yeah. And I didn't think that made sense for this new consumer of sports supplements. So that was the idea, was actually let's try and make really, really healthy sports supplements that sure they'll help you with your performance, but they're also going to help you feel better, maybe help you sleep better, maybe help you manage your stress better, all those things. And ran Motion for 6 or 7 years, and it was pretty successful. But mainly now I'm very grateful for having learned so much from it. Um, you know, second time around launching a consumer goods brand is like cheat code.
Ah,
There's a lot of stuff that I've learned, and it's not that I know what to do all the time. It's mostly more that I know mistakes and things to avoid before they're in my face. So yeah, very, very grateful for that.
I love that. I love that. Life is one big lesson. When are we going to learn? There's never failure, only lessons. And until you like literally step out your comfort zone and you go and do the things that you like, you see a problem, right? You're like, we all need to be feeding our bodies and taking sovereignty of our health and our wealth, right? Um, we're so conditioned to, especially in the UK. Maybe it's different in where you grew up in France, where people are literally outdoors because it's cold in the UK. We like go inside. We drink every day. It's such a culture of boozing. Like I grew up at the age of 12. Letting you give an insight. Grew up in Bradford, okay? Bradford. I don't know if you've heard of Bradford in the north of England. I was very lucky. I grew up in a small holding, so I was always outside. I was riding a horse. I always had a horse, so I was always riding. But then equally, all my friends were in the pub. From like the age of 12, like we used to go to it was weird. Like, so now I've given up booze. I'm like, who the flip am I, right? But it's because I was drawn down to the south of England, which is significantly warmer than the north of England, and
Sure.
maybe I need a trip to the south of France. It keeps calling to me. A load of my friends are moving that way. I mean, I'm like, okay, maybe I need to take the hint, but probably not for a while. Anyway, I do this. I go off on a tangent. But literally, creating something and then rolling with it. For 6 years, you were running with that, and then you sold that business, right? You sold it. You had
Yep.
someone buy out, and this is what we talked about. I think before we came on last week when we were chatting, was that it's hard for big corporations to solve the problems because they're too big. And I know we want to dive into this with what you wanted to do with Oshun and what you wanted to create with Oshun. A lot of big corporations, they're so massive, they have shareholders, they can't pivot. And that is why we need people that have these amazing ideas to go and go, hang on a minute, this isn't just for people that want to be macho. And actually, a lot of people don't want to be macho. They don't want to, there's a lot of women out there that want to take supplements. There's a lot of people that just want to take that sovereignty and be able to connect with it. I actually take a lot of vegan supplements, and there's a massive thing in the health industry that pea protein is not as good as meat protein. That's a whole different topic, right? And I've dived into that so many times about the types of protein and inflammation in the body, which I love to talk about. When you finished up with Motion Nutrition, did you have a break? What happened in that time for you when you had that time
Um,
out?
no, I didn't really have a break because I had started another business called No Jack Media, with my partner Jack, and that was at a time where he was basically he'd been very kindly, but almost begging for me to come and work full time with him. So he was really ready for help. We'd been really successful for a while with that business, and it was kind of getting a little bit too much person to manage.
For him to manage.
Right.
Yeah.
So because I had been involved more at arm's length on the sort of, brand direction, strategic direction point of view rather than everyday running of the business. And so I just needed to jump from one thing to another. So didn't really get much time to catch my breath, but it was cool. I went from, running our own brand with a dozen products to working with really big companies like the North Face and then National Geographic, Aston Martin. So really, really cool projects. But also through that time, I think there was pretty much 2 years where we were doing exclusively that. So there's a media production business, so producing stills and videos for brands. We were also working with, alongside these big corporations, we were working with quite a lot of early stage, quite often post funding because they had a bit of money to spend on media production, but early stage consumer goods brands like um, energy drinks, supplements, personalized supplements, even some sportswear brands, beauty brands, this kind of thing. And so what was really interesting was during that period, we were helping these early stage companies um, with their content, but inevitably when you do that, you sort of have bigger conversations as well. Like, okay, where are you taking the brand? What do you want? What is it you want to do with this content? Where, what's the brand strategy? Where are you going? Who are you talking to? Because that's what we sort of need to know to do a good job for our clients. And I think Jack and I both realized that we had quite compatible skills for starting a new consumer goods brands. So Jack is a brilliant creative, has got a fantastic eye for making things look good. And I have much more of a sort of understanding of the consumer's perception, how we need to shape a story for it to make sense and to, say the right things, but not too much to somebody so that they can understand, whether it's for them or not really fast. And so
Feels
that's
a
sort of
little
when,
bit, it feels a little bit like yin and yang,
right,
right? Because the yin is the creative and the yang is the how you do it.
right. Yeah.
So that feels really abundant, like for you and Jack and Joe to come together. I love that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Well, so we work really well together, and but I think I had sort of stepped away from motion, thinking I'm not going to do another consumer goods brand for a really, really long time. But that basically lasted 18 months because
Because you
we
didn't have a
were
break. You're in it, and
right.
when you're in your zone and when you're in your love energy, because you love what you do, you're so passionate about what you do, you're having impact, and they call it. I talk a lot about ikigai. When you're doing
Mm,
ikigai is a Japanese concept for
hmm
living a life of joy and purpose, and we think that you know we have to do something we hate. We're in a career, we have to do all this stuff, that the world tells us we have to do. When you're in love energy and in that vibration, yes, emotion, obviously it was like, right, I'm not gonna have a break. I'm gonna go and do this. I'm not gonna do another consumer goods brand myself. I'm gonna do this. And then eventually you come full circle, you go, I've got another idea. that is being a serial, that's an entrepreneur. That is literally when you're in flow and you're in creative and you have your own creative energy and outlets, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, we'd had quite a few ideas. And we played around with a few ideas and a few concepts, but Ocean became really special because there's a few things that kind of came together. On the one hand, really quite clear that over a period of 5, 10 years, there's slow but consistent increase in awareness of hydration in general, electrolytes specifically. Um, Again, sort of like 10 years earlier with like protein supplements, raising awareness, not necessarily improvement in products. So that's like an interesting space, right? More and more people are interested in these types of products, but the products themselves are not necessarily evolving. So that was something that we were noticing. And then at the same time, all of the new brands in this space are all focused on performance. Again, sports performance, endurance, Ironman, triathlon, marathon, which is great. Like that's fantastic. Really good to have sports hydration products for that kind of thing. But that's only really touching a small percentage of the population. And usually people who do those kind of things are already like 99% optimized. Like they're already really taking good care of themselves. They're eating well. They're probably hydrating pretty well as it is. You're sort of toying with like the 1% improvements. I'm much more interested in saying, well, actually, there's probably half of the population that's not hydrating well enough. And I tell you what, they're not all doing triathlon and Ironman and marathons. So how about we look at those people and say, if we have very small intervention with these people, add a pump of Ocean into your glass of water a few times a day, like so easy, right?
It's,
That can
it
have
is
a
so easy. I
right.
vouch for this. It's so easy.
So this is the thing where the step to use a product is incredibly easy. There's no friction, and it's a habit. It's habit forming using the pump. So you get that habit stacking that you were talking about.
Mhm.
If you can combine that with like big downstream benefit for people who are not, 99% optimized. Sure, if you're 99% optimized, it's going to help you, but it's going to have a 1% improvement. If you're sort of not in that perfect state currently, like if you're not perfectly hydrated, you're not perfectly like fueled, you're not probably not exercising or moving your body quite enough. That's where like we can really have like a big order of magnitude shift for people.
I was talking to Lenka, my yogi, last night at yoga Lattes. Literally, we were both saying at the start of it we were really tired because we'd not moved our body. I'd been sat down working, and yes, hydration is so the key. Like I'm drinking so much more water in my own life because last year I spoke to on the podcast. No, it wasn't last year. It was this at the start of this year. Someone called Darren O'Lean, who actually is the founder of Beachbody supplements in the States, and he's got his book Super Life, and he talks about hydration. And so 2 years ago, I started reading on this, and I'm like, so I started really focusing on hydration. And this is why talking to you is so divinely orchestrated, right? Because hydration, we think that if we're thirsty, we're already dehydrated. And so I'm thinking always just drink. Don't wait to be thirsty. I'm even sat here thinking I'm thirsty right now. I need to have some water. We need to habit stack
Hmm.
water before we're thirsty and get
Yeah.
into that habit and that of putting it in. And then we need to be moving our bodies because we need to move our bodies to get that fluidity. And so when I was chatting to Lenka last night, we think we're tired and we get in, and so what do we do when we think we're tired? We go and get some chocolate, or maybe we go and have something really bad for us, like worse, like go in the UK. There's like drive-through McDonald's everywhere, literally. And that in North Devon, if you come to North, have you been to North Devon?
Yeah, I've been to
Yeah.
Bronton.
Yeah. So
I know well.
so if you come here, literally, there's not many healthy places to drive through. Like, so most people drive through the McDonald's. It's not a great thing. There's not many things here. It's quite rustic and rural. And so that's where a lot of people that you live by the beach, even here in North Devon, and people are overweight or unfit and depressed and anxiety and anxious and not happy. And then people come to me and talk to me now that I've changed my life, and they'll go, how are you? You're it's winter and you're glowing. I'm like, yeah, I drink and I don't drink booze. I do still drink, by the way. I just don't drink alcohol. And by the way, I'm not against drinking alcohol. Like it's just my personal choice. But
Sure.
you know, I move my body. I prioritize my yoga every day. And when I get those down moments of energy, I go and do, even if it's just 10 minutes of yoga flow or even a hit, I'll go for a run on the beach. I love running barefoot now on the beach through the water. Like it just changes everything. And then I come back and I have my creativity is back and I'm able to do things. So it's just so perfect what you've created with the fact that you can really stimulate this habit of drinking more water. I just want to come on to something because I really, really love the fact that we talk about what the body is. And we talked about this before, you know, your body being an ocean. We think of our body as 60% water. It's 100% water. The research is showing that we are walking oceans, that our body forms crystals. We crystalline. That's how the physics is showing that, you know, physical matter, we crystalline, but the whole body is an ocean. And in order for the body to function, it needs to flow and it needs electrolytes to do that. So let's tell me a little bit about what the power of ocean is, what you've actually created with your electrolytes and why we need to put this into our water.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, electrolytes are just minerals with an electric charge. So
Mm.
this is what we don't necessarily tell people because mostly it's sort of too much information. Most people just need to understand, why do I need this? What's it going to do for me? And then they can decide, you know, in a well enough informed way if they want to spend money on it or not. So that's what we talk about. But basically, electrolytes are minerals with an electric charge, and so adding electrolytes to your water and to your body means that your body can essentially manipulate its internal energy and tell where you need water. So this is why um, usually people's skin will start to look more hydrated, more plump after a couple of weeks of adding in ocean, because your body can actually put moisture and water where it needs it, thanks to those electrolytes, thanks to that electric charge, which allows your body to say, okay, we need moisture over here, over here, over here. It might be that your nails grow stronger. It might be that your joints are less sore because you're putting in moisture into the right places. But we make ocean by concentrating inland seawater from the Great Salt Lake of Utah. And this is a process that takes 2 years. And it's very slow and it's very respectful of the Great Salt Lake because it is a endangered resource. So we use it very sparingly. The water basically goes into different big containers over a period of 2 years and moves from one container to the next, just through solar evaporation, getting more and more concentrated. And then we get to the final product, which needs a little bit of balancing out. So we put purified water and a little bit of potassium in there to make it a consistent product every single time. And so it's a very, very natural, very, very pure product. And that's amazing because it's got 70 trace minerals in it. It's got all the electrolytes that your body needs in beautiful quantities. But also that process, although it's slow, is very low in intervention. So there's not a lot of machinery necessary. There's no blending of powders. There's no making a little capsule or a little fizzy tab or anything like that, which is what most electrolytes are, either powders or a fizzy tab. All that process is quite expensive and it requires lots and lots of additives. So if you look at what's in your fizzy tab, there's loads of maltodextrin, there's sweeteners, there's binders. Also, the minerals are not in their ionic form, which means they're basically bound to another mineral. So for example, if you got magnesium in your electrolyte, if it's a cheap brand, you're going to have magnesium oxide, which is basically not a very easy to digest form of magnesium. So your body's not really going to utilize this product very well. So as a whole, it's just not a very good product for your body. Whereas with ocean, it's got ionic forms of minerals. So not bound to anything else, very, very easy to absorb. But also because we don't have to add anything, because we don't have to blend any powders, because we don't have to add any binders, we don't have to compress into a little fizz tab, it's very financially sound. Like it's not an expensive product to manufacture. So that means that we can make this bottle, which has 200 servings, for the same price that most electrolyte products will have 20 to 30 servings. That's awesome because we've got a superior product that's actually better value. And so that puts us in a really, really good place. And then, because we attack this space from a point of not performance, we have to find ways to communicate why electrolytes are going to be beneficial to people who often are not aware of them. They're either not even aware of electrolytes, or they might be, but they don't know what it's for. So we basically have to find like, okay, well, what are people going to feel? Like what are the symptoms of lacking electrolytes? What are the benefits of adding in electrolytes? And usually there's pretty much like a list of 5 or 6 things that you may or may not feel. But if you feel sort of 2 or more of these things, you're probably like, this is a really good sign that you're lacking electrolytes. So one of them is low energy, like fatigue or kind of brain fog, like a fuzzy mind. Another one is dry skin or dry mouth. So that's a really good sign, pretty common. A third one is craving salty food, like salty snacks. This is really, really common in the UK where, at sort of 10, 11 a.m., people go for like a packet of crisps and a Diet Coke because they're feeling thirsty and they need the salt, right? So these are really, really common signs that you're lacking electrolytes. A fourth sign is blocked up, or you go through periods of being blocked up and then having like really loose stools, and like you sort of go from one to the other. So you're basically inconsistently hydrated. A fifth sign might be that you're probably not sleeping very well. Essentially your body has a hard time resting. And then another really common one, which is quite surprising, is if you're constantly craving sparkling drinks, sparkling water, or like sparkling soda, that's another sign because basically your mouth is like dried out and those bubbles feel really nice. So all those things together are really clear signs that you're lacking electrolytes. But if you have just 2 of them, you're probably going to have a really big improvement. And usually that's going to be seen as you're going to feel a clear sort of energy, like clear mind, that your fuzzy brain, especially in the morning, if you have Oshun like first thing in the morning, that sort of brain fog is going to dissipate. That's the first thing. And then eventually you're going to pretty much have like better, clearer skin. So clear mind and clear skin are like the 2 most common benefits that people will feel.
Literally, if I needed to find you 12 months ago, right? Because I've achieved this in probably a way harder way
Mm,
because I was low on energy 18 months ago, you know, really dry skin. Like I've got young children, right? My sleep was horrendous. I was reaching for the snacks. I've never really drunk Diet Coke, but I love sparkling water. I don't
mm.
drink sparkling water anymore. I don't even crave it. I just love water. I
That's
love
so
water, and I
interesting.
put lemon in a lot. Like I was telling you, I think, and I do like my tea in the morning. I'm Yorkshire. Like the first thing I think about as soon as wake up in the morning, like I go, my little boy might come in, Harry, and I'll go, I wish Harry could go make me a cup of tea. I'm gonna have to go make myself a cup of tea. Like now I live on my own in Braunton. I'm like flipping heck, need a cup of tea. It's the first thing I think about, but it's not the first thing that I have
Mm,
because for a really, really long time, I've had lemon water heated with a little bit of heat. It's
mm.
just because it's really good stimulation. But I've always had this addiction to fizzy water. And then over the last 18 months, people have said, oh, why do you have so much energy? Or why are you always bouncing around? And why, when you go running, you like you bounce along the road. My friend Rachel saw me running through Braunton. She says, like, you were just bouncing along the road. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's energy. At the end of the day, energy is electricity. A form of energy is electricity. So this body is an electrical charge. It's here to conduct electricity. So if we don't have electrolytes, it makes sense. I'm such a science nerd. I did chemistry and biology at uni. I love the fact that you've taught me through the science bit because that for me, I love to hear the nerdy bits around why we need electricity. But just those 5 signs, I'm sure so many people will resonate with. And it's so simple because it's so affordable. You can just shove it into your drink and start creating something that took me 18 months to create, right? How amazing is that? One thing that you talked about, and this is something that I'm learning because I'm going through a bit of a spiritual journey as well, alongside all of the entrepreneurial stuff that I do. And so I'm studying Reiki at the minute because I want to do my own Reiki. Reiki again is a Japanese word of like energy, basically it's channeling energy. And with Reiki, you trust that the energy is going to go to where it needs to heal your body. You don't set an intention of, right, okay, I don't like this bit of my arm, so I'm going to do Reiki here. You actually do self-healing. It's all about actually healing yourself first and foremost before you could even go and think about doing Reiki with anybody else or on anybody else. And what you said with the electrolytes is that it intuitively knows the fluidity will know where it needs to go in your body. And disease that we have modern day diseases today is because our body can't flow. It can't send things to where it needs to go to. The energy can't move. And so I just feel like Reiki aligned with ocean, like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be like on cloud nine. I might even fly to the south of France, literally. That would be amazing, right? 10 years ago, was it 10 years ago? Probably longer, like I think probably about 13 years ago, I stopped putting chemicals on my body. I found a
Mm,
brand called Ringana actually in Austria that is a skincare brand. And I stopped putting chemicals on my body because of the preservatives that are in skincare.
mhm,
And I've slowly, and we talk about 1% change, right? 1% change to making yourself better. I cannot put anything that's not real on my body. Yet, why is it when we're drinking, we're putting
mm,
toxins into our body, right? And for that's one of the reasons why I gave up booze. I was like, I used to go love a drink, love a glass of wine, and I'd always get blotchy and red, and it's my
mhm.
body telling me it doesn't like it. Now I'm telling you, if I came to the south of France, I probably would have a glass of rosé. I mean, it goes without saying. I'm not saying I'll never do it, right? And this is
Sure.
why we get to choose these things. When we create habits, habits have to be in alignment with our body being this temple. And then when we get the things in life that we want to enjoy, like maybe a beautiful coffee or a glass of rosé or that chocolate, it's choice. And
Mhm.
because our body, we want to take that on and enjoy it, right? So everyone needs to bring some ocean into their life for sure. Oh, where do we go from here? I mean, it's just amazing. I just think it's just so amazing. I think people will be listening. A lot of the people, and this is where I want to finish actually with you, Joe, if that's okay, because you obviously, whilst you know, have your own brands and you have Motion, you had Motion Nutrition, No Jack Media, Ocean, you have these amazing brands that you do. You also help other people because you have this knowledge, and there's so many people that I even know sat here thinking I need to connect you to that person now I know that is doing this wellness brand that's been asking me, how do I launch this product-based business? And I'm like, I'm not a product-based business. I'm like, I know you. I'm like, you're going to probably be in my life. I'm going to do your head in. You need to speak to this person. People are listening to this show wanting to be the future founder of something really an amazing idea, whether that's a wealth and health, health and wellness business generally, or whether that's an idea they've got. Um, you do that's another part of what you do, right? You
Yeah,
love to advise people. Tell me a little bit
yeah.
about that.
Um, I think a lot of times it tends to be particularly helpful when or I can help people a lot when they've maybe spent a bunch of their career usually in the sort of agency world or in some kind of like service-based role, quite often servicing consumer goods brands. And so they've basically spent like 10 or 20 years sort of advising or working with or servicing these consumer goods brands. And of course, over those 10, 20 years, they've had their own brain go, oh, that's a really cool product, or this is a really cool one, or that's interesting, but I would have done it differently. Then after like 10, 15, 20 years, they go, actually, now I have a really good idea. I want to do this. Um, but it's quite a scary step.
Mhm.
I think going from agency to product is really, really difficult because you feel like you've been involved, but you don't actually know what it's like on the brand side. And I've spoken to super senior people who've had an incredibly successful agency career, 20, 30, 40 years, and have this great product idea. And honestly, sometimes listening to them talk, it's like they're 20, haven't done anything before because the although they have all this amazing wealth of experience in sort of maybe design or marketing or advisory of some kind, um, doing it with your own product is completely different. And I think that there's a lot of mistakes that you can make if you don't have somebody to kind of advise you, especially with those early steps. Eventually, like once you get to a certain velocity, you sort of work things out. You kind of know what to do. But I think the sort of 0 to maybe 2 million in revenue for people who've not done anything like that before is really, really, really difficult. And they're going to have incorrect assumptions of what's going to work, usually because their clients for the past 10, 20, 30 years have been beyond that point, right? So they've worked with people who are able to hire agencies, which usually means they're sort of 2, 5, 10, 20 million in turnover or more, and they've worked out all the early kinks. And they usually people who are in sort of freelance or advisory or agency work have never seen the 0 to 2 million stage. They're just not exposed to it.
No.
And it's normal because those companies can't hire freelancers or agencies very much. So that's the stage where I'm really interested in helping people, because there's just like this massive like black space that they just haven't been exposed to.
Cash flow is an issue in that time, right? Like it's a
Yeah,
massive
so much.
investment. The supply chain management, all of the things that you don't think about that you have to get your business going. Often it's loss making at the start. And I remember talking to a founder last year. I was at a conference called Iconic Wealth for Women, and there was a founder of Wiku period pants for women, and she talked about the fact that in the first few years they were so loss making because that is the business. Like you have to be ready to know that that's okay, because you can be a period where you're investing in your business and you need to know what that would look like and then to step through it. So actually having done it for yourself really gives you a huge insight. And I think sometimes just having that conversation with someone when you have an idea, because you need to get that idea out there, or it might be a non-starter as well. Like it's okay to have ideas that actually you've been and you revisit, because it's better to kind of flush these ideas out, I think, because
Yeah,
not
it's much better to get rid of a bad idea early
yeah.
than when you spent 2 years 2 years of your time and lots of money on it.
Yeah, and then once you've got that, then you've got a brand that once you've got the brand out there, you've got then a brand ready to scale. And one of my clients actually is a branding designer for beautiful. She's done a lot of like consumer goods, and Claire, she was on the podcast before, and her company is called Brand Ready to Scale. But to get to that stage, you have to have your brand there, you have to have your product there, and that's kind of that sweet spot, right? That you know what you're doing because you've done it so beautifully with Motion, learned those lessons, and now you're doing it again with Ocean, and obviously all the work that you've done with No Jack Media is just amazing. So what's next for Joe? What's next for you now that you're in the south of France, nice and hot and not getting rained on? What's next for you?
I'll just help people hydrate better, get more ocean into their lives, feel good. I think that the beautiful thing about this product is you get some benefits immediately. And so you sort of like your usually like your consumption of it sort of snowballs up to a certain point where you sort of maximize the benefits, but people will be like quite careful with it initially, and then their mind starts to associate feeling better with adding ocean to water. And so you start doing it like 4 to 8 pumps a day, which is what we advise. And then you get to like a really good place, and you naturally will start talking to other people about it, which is great. Like that's what I love about this brand is it sort of is growing like
It's that
really, really
ripple.
nicely. Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
ripple effect, isn't it? It
Yeah,
really is. It's really beautiful. And from the word go, I have not held back. I've put 2 or 3 pumps in my glass of water, like
awesome.
every time. Like, and I'm like, right, okay, it's lunchtime. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to have some, because one of the biggest mistakes we make when we eat is that we drink water at the time of eating, which is quite bad. So sometimes it's really important to hydrate before or like
Yeah.
after eating. These are all the things that I'm learning, and I'm getting to know how the body works, and all of the things around fasting and all of the things. There's so many areas of health and wealth that when we are in charge of our body, not anybody else. First and foremost, like the biggest message I always think is that this body is not somebody else's responsibility.
Mm.
It's 100% yours. And what Ocean gives you is the ability to really supercharge and create that.
It gives you ownership without very much effort.
Yeah. And how great is that? Because one of the things that I always struggle with is, I get quite overwhelmed, tech and things, I'm doing a podcast. It takes me a while to learn these things. And overwhelm can stop us from doing something, because
Yeah.
then our mind will start to think. And also your mind will say as well, oh, I can't have plump skin, or I can't be fit. Literally, I'm 41 now. I've not been fitter and healthier.
Mm.
Like it's never too late to change and become like the person that you want to be. And whether, whatever age you are at, it is this is going to really help you. It does my head in, actually. When I was like discovering Ringana, so I'm going off on a tangent here again. This is what I do, Joe. You'll get to know me. I was talking to my at the time my ex mother-in-law about the skincare. And she was like, "Oh, what's the point in me doing it?" I was like,
Mm,
I've always had this like view that it's never, ever, ever, ever too late. And if you think it's too late, you're probably right. Because whatever you think is the reality.
yeah, yeah,
And that
that's so
belief
true.
is so, so important. Now, there's one question that I always like to finish with before I let you go back to painting your place. You'll have to send some pictures of your painting of your place.
Sure.
And this is, and it kind of, it's like you're probably going to expect it. It's like, what does wealth mean to you? What if you were to define wealth? What does wealth mean to Joe?
To me, it's time and health. So if I can have time and I'm healthy to do things, then I feel wealthy. Time is usually a result of, or a close relationship to money. So, but money is nothing. Like it's useless. So, but if you can have time and if you're healthy to do things, that's the real luxury. So that's my idea of wealth is having time and being physically healthy. And physically healthy does include being physically strong for me. So
Mm.
I love being able to move heavy things around, throw my son up in the air, and feel good. Like I just love to be able to do those things. So that's it for me is having time and being physically healthy.
100%. And there's the paradigm, because to make the most of our time, we need to have energy, right? And often we waste so much time being in fatigue, in lack, in the wrong space and the wrong energy, that we then waste time, and then the money doesn't flow in because we're not in the right energy. So 100% agree. This is like what I talk all the time about, is the paradigm between, and the connection between money, time, and
Hmm.
energy. My
Yeah.
formula, one of my formulas is the wealth building formula is money plus time plus energy plus you. And I really believe that 100% what you've just said. And that's why you are literally the perfect person to bring onto the show. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of your magic with me today and sharing this time with me. I feel so blessed to have met you and to have found you and found Ocean. It's truly, I honestly, I haven't just bought one bottle. This is going to be a part of my life, because once I find something like Ringana, I did that 13 years ago. Once I find something and it works for me, I habit stack, that is it. And I'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
panics. And it came the next day. I ordered it
Awesome.
on your website. So anyone that's listening to the show, anyone that wants to connect with Joe, Joe's contacts will be in the show notes, whether it's on YouTube or whether you're listening in the podcast. You can also find Ocean down there. Joe, you're going to share all your links with me that you want to share. Please, please do. But yeah, anything you want to go out on today, anything, if you've got one last thought that you want to share with my followers today.
Just look after yourself. Be happy.
Look after yourself and be happy. I love that. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Emma.